Hi and welcome to Grails to Astonish. Now we're going to do day 3, the final day of ComicLink's Summer Featured Auction, which ends next Wednesday, August 27th. 3 days from now. 4 days? 3 days from now. We're going to go from the letter M to Z, which is half the alphabet, but it's only about a third of the books because most comics start with the letter A. So you got your Action Comics, Adventure Comics, Amazing Spider-Man, and Avengers. So once you get through the A's, the rest goes relatively quickly. I'm going to start with Mr. Mystery number 12. I've spent a lot of time on pre-code horror books because this auction is a lot of Golden Age stuff, and a lot of the Golden Age is pre-code horror. This one is Mr. Mystery number 12, which has the hot poker going into the bloodshot eyeball. The bidding on this is $2,850 and the fair market value is $3,100, which means this one is very likely going to go for more than the fair market value. It seems to me that when it comes to pre-code horror, it's not about the first issue. It's often about how relevant that book was to the indecency hearings that resulted in the Comics Code. But a lot of times it's just about how gross the cover is. People like collecting the really, really nasty pre-code horror books, and this one is one of the nastiest. There's nothing actually quite happening yet, but... And then we got Pep Comics featured The Shield. I talked earlier when we were looking at Captain America Comics number 1 about how Captain America initially had a shield-shaped shield and had to abandon that for issue 2 to get the circular shield we all know. That's because of this guy, The Shield, who was in Pep Comics. He didn't oddly carry a shield, he just wore a shirt that looked like a shield. Anyway, still looked remarkably similar to the shield Captain America was carrying. So we got a couple of these early shield books, but they are not particularly valuable or important. I do want to stop briefly on Pep Comics number 17, which introduces the Hangman. I can't find anything to support this on the internet, but I am pretty confident that the Hangman character in Pep Comics 17 is the inspiration for Hooded Justice in Watchmen, who had a fairly minor flashback role in the Watchmen comic, but then featured more prominently in the Watchmen TV series on HBO, which, if you haven't seen it, is spectacular. In any case, I think the Hangman, who is a dark superhero to introduce in 1941, it seems like his deal was he just went around hanging Nazis. All the Watchmen characters were lifted fairly directly from characters in, I believe, Charlton Comics. I think I'm getting that right. Dr. Manhattan was Captain Atom. Rorschach was, I think, the Question. I think Hooded Justice was the Hangman. The bidding on this one's $3,780. It's a 7.0. It doesn't matter. The Pep Comics that we're going to talk about is Pep Comics 22. It's not because the shield's on the cover. It's because inside the book is a story about Archie. This is the first appearance of Archie and Betty and Jughead, for what that's worth. We've got 39 copies in existence. This is a restored 9.6 with extensive A5 restoration. That means it was professionally done. That's what the A means. And there's a whole lot of it. That's what the 5 means. Based on the serial number starting with 4586, I'm going to guess it was pretty recent. The grading was done on this within the last year or two. In fact, I'm going to take the time and I'm going to look it up. Yeah, the grading, this was just done. This was graded on June 23rd of this year. So this just got done, came in at 9.6. They did color touch, pieces added, tear seals, spine split sealed, reinforced, cleaned, interior lightened, staples replaced. They did just about everything you can do to make this book look good, and they did a great job. It looks fantastic. I'm curious what this looked like before it was touched up. Once you put even a drop of ink on it, all bets are off. You might as well go to town, and I suspect someone just repainted the cover and painted over all the color breaks and all the bends and all the scrapes that this thing had. Who knows what condition it was in before. This book does not exist above 8.5 unrestored. I don't believe that there are very many collectors who are willing to pay a lot of money for Archie keys anymore. It seems there were once. For example, we have this 6.5 which sold for $111,000 in 2012, $135,000 in 2015, $183,000 in 2023. So this went up, and then the bubble burst. And now we have this one going for $11,550. It will probably close much higher, but the auction is only 3 days away. Because this is a six-figure book. Even restored, this is a six-figure book, 9.6. The sky's the limit on what a 9.6 unrestored would be. The highest unrestored is an 8.5. And that one, we have no idea what the value is because it's never sold. So the highest unrestored copy ever sold was an 8.0 at $250,000. Nothing else in the P's. We got a bunch of these Peps with some very Nazi-heavy covers. Here's the Hangman versus Captain Swastika. We've got the Hangman versus Captain Swastika. This is dark. Both sides of this battle are dark, and their wrestling mat appears to be the continental United States, and both Canada and Mexico have disappeared. Yeah, we've got some Nazis here, some sort of vampire/werewolf Nazis who are injecting needles into people's faces. Pep Comics is dark. And then we've got Archie, Pep Comics 36. This is the first Pep that had Archie on the cover for a change in tone. This is the first time Archie showed up on a Pep cover, and boy, he's got big teeth. Punch Comics. I know there are many who are quite fond of Punch Comics. This particular cover appears to be a self-portrait of the artist, Gus Ricca. It's not my bag. Perhaps if I had more familiarity with it or better taste, I would be excited about it. Bidding is at $1,800 for a restored 3.5. And we got Punisher at 9.9, which I do not give a hoot about. Real Life Comics, number 3, with a big old Hitler, a heroic Hitler pose on the cover. I worry about this. I didn't used to worry. I've owned a number of comics that had Hitler on the cover. I prefer to have Hitler being punched or having his head stepped on. A lot of people take an interest in World War II covers that feature Hitler. I always assumed we were all on the same page about it. Nowadays, not so sure. So I worry in these auctions in 2025 that when people are buying comics that feature Hitler in heroic poses, I'm not on the same page with them. This one's bidding at $5,500 for a Blue Label 6.0 of a comic I've never heard of before. I don't think people are bidding on this for any other reason than the heroic Hitler holding a skull, wielding a gun. Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo. It's a nice palate cleanser. Oh, great, we got Napoleon on it. Is there any escape from autocratic dictators? They're on every comic cover all of a sudden. Seven Seas Comics, a very nice painted cover. This shark appears to have a cleft lip. Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos number 1, the first appearance of Sergeant Fury. I know he did appear early on in Fantastic Four, but I think that was when they were integrating him into the Marvel chronology in the 1960s. This is World War II era, introducing the character. It's going for a lot, $3,400. It's 8.5 off-white pages. I just don't see it with the first appearance of Nick Fury. He's been huge in the MCU. The Sergeant Fury from the comics was fighting in World War II. He was not Sam Jackson. I think Sergeant Fury got more interesting in Strange Tales 135 when he became the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think that the stuff Jack Kirby did with super spy stuff was a lot of fun. His World War II adventures, less interesting. Then we've got Shock Suspense Stories number 6. I get this cover confused with Suspense Comics number 3 for some pretty justifiable reasons. Here we've got Shock Suspense Stories number 6, some sort of Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan burning a woman alive. And then in Suspense number 3, you've got some sort of vaguely Ku Klux Klan affiliated Nazis who are about to sacrifice a woman in the jungle. There are several clear similarities here, but Suspense Comics number 3 is the super valuable one. Apparently, people gather around and burn these books, and that's why there's so few copies left. This Shock Suspense Stories, pretty sure the artist was aware of the Suspense number 3 cover and was basically copying it. It's fairly valuable as well. Current bidding is at $5,100 with a fair market value of $6,500. So this one will probably go for fair market or more. which shows you that there is still demand for the shocking, controversial pre-code horror covers, especially when they feature Nazis and Klan members. This is not Suspense Comics number 3. It just looks a lot like it, and it's less valuable. We have nothing until we get to Silver Surfer number 1, White Pages 9.8. This is a book that I am suspicious about because I don't think there's any earthly reason why this book should be selling for as much as it is. It feels to me like Silver Surfer number 1, Marvel Spotlight number 5, Hulk 181 for sure, and possibly Amazing Spider-Man 129 are books that have been seized on by some sort of collectible investment fund. It seems to me that they have decided that collectibles are a good thing to invest in as an alternative to real estate, a way to put your assets into something that aren't cash, probably for tax reasons. And when you have these books that are already pretty in demand and valuable, but are high population, crucially, you can't manipulate the market on something like even Amazing Fantasy 15 or Fantastic Four number 1 the way you can with these Bronze Age books. And Silver Surfer isn't quite Bronze Age, but it's getting there. It's high population, where there are hundreds of copies at top grade, and you can buy a bunch of them and drive the price way up for them. Disclaimer here, this is just my speculation. I don't know that these funds exist. It just makes sense to me that you would target these books. There's 100 of these copies. If I can get each of these 100 9.8 copies worth $50,000, $100,000, $150,000, my asset value is very high, and I can go get loans based on the value of these assets for a lot of money. I can go borrow money because I've bought all these books and driven the price up. And every time one of them shows up at auction, I bid on it and I make sure the price stays high. Sure, there's no actual demand. Nobody wants to pay $130,000 for Silver Surfer number 1. But as long as I keep bidding it up there, holding that price high, then my 100 copies that I already have stay worth the amount of money I need them to stay worth. That's my theory. It could all be nonsense, and maybe there are lots of very wealthy Silver Surfer fans who don't want to actually own the first appearance of Silver Surfer in Fantastic 48. They don't want to own his first cover appearance in Fantastic Four 49. They want to put their money in Silver Surfer number 1, which is not a Jack Kirby cover. It's a John Buscema cover where he's imitating Jack Kirby's style. They've driven the price of this book up. We have 2 sales at $132,000 on Heritage, a year and 3 months apart, exactly the same amount of money for almost exactly the same book. This one's white pages, this one's off white to white. It seems curious to me that they paid exactly the same amount to the dollar for these 2 copies on Heritage. I could be wrong. I don't think there are 2 different collectors who paid $132,000 because they love Silver Surfer that much. I think these are disingenuous purchases from investors who do not give a crap about this particular comic. It is an asset, and they can establish its value at this level by buying it over and over again, and they can hold it up. What I'm saying here, folks, don't buy Silver Surfer number 1, because at some point, when they decide for whatever reason that they're going to stop establishing the floor value of that book by always bidding it up, then you're going to be left out in the cold. Because if they're not there bidding on this book to keep it high, it's going to plummet. And it looks like that's happening for some of the other books. Maybe they sold them off and now they don't need to keep the price high. But this one, the bidding's at $48,000, which suggests it's not going to get anywhere close to the fair market of $130,000, nor should it, but still pretty high. Somebody's willing to put $48,000 down on this book. A decade ago, it was worth a tenth that. There are only 10 copies. Okay, so I'm exaggerating when I say there are hundreds. There are only 10 copies of this at 9.8, but it is a high population book. There are 8,100 graded copies. They skew relatively high on condition. You got 239 at 9.0, 115 at 9.2. This isn't like other Silver Age keys. There are a lot of high-grade copies of this book. This particular auction, we've got 3 copies in the 9.0 range. Bidding's at $48,000 on the 9.8, $2,900 on the 9.2, $1,206 on the 9.0. I would say don't buy any of these. However, I do like Silver Surfer 4. I just like the cover. I think it's a much better cover. I've made a whole video where I talked about that. This one we got a 9.8 white pages, a 9.6 In the Boston pedigree, off-white to white, 9.4 off-white to white, and 9.2 off-white to white. So you can have your pick. This is another very split bid auction. So great if you're a buyer of Silver Surfer number 4. I feel like based on the prices, I don't think that this issue is as much a target of investment speculation and artificial propping up of the values. This 9.8 is going for $17,000, while issue 1 at 9.8 is going for $48,000. The fair market on issue 4 at 9.8 white pages is $54,000. The 9.6 Boston pedigree, I don't know how much being a pedigree book is going to matter for this particular issue. It seems to matter more for Golden Age and for low population books. Bidding's at $9,150 and the fair market is $11,000. So that's very close to fair market. Apparently people do care about pedigrees. So they're willing to already bid $9,150 for a fair market of $11,000, and the bidding's only at $17,000 on the 9.8, where the fair market's $54,000. So maybe that's because of the pedigree. I used to have a copy of this. I sold it off. It goes for very, very high prices because it is one of the most prized covers of any Silver Age Marvel comic. All right, scrolling through the Silver Surfer, then we got Skeleton Hand, Speed Comics. Now we got a fun one, Startling Comics. Startling Comics 49 with this beautiful Alex Schomburg cover. You're probably thinking to yourself, what I'm thinking when you look at this robot that is clearly Bender from Futurama. This is one of the most beautiful Golden Age covers, and this is a 9.6 creamed off-white pages. The population on this book is 146 copies. Not super duper scarce, but scarce. There are 4 9.6s. So again, this isn't the only 9.6, and there are no 9.8. So this is the highest graded. There are 4 of them. This is not restored. This is an extraordinarily good copy of this book. The bidding is currently at $29,456. The fair market value is $132,000. So this should be one of the top 5 selling books in this whole auction. One of the handful that's going to go for over $100,000. The market says it should, but we're not anywhere close to that now. Startling Comics 49. Let's look at some sales. So the last sale that established the price was in 2021, peak of the comic bubble, June of 2021. That month, I think, pretty much is the peak of the bubble, $132,000. So prior to that, it sold for $64,000, $54,970. In 2016, it sold for $101,000. So it did a little digging here, and I now understand why this book is very unlikely to go for what is listed as its fair market value of $132,000. The $132,000 sale happened at the peak of the market on a pedigree copy, which this is not. Furthermore, it's creamed off-white, and that pedigree copy was off-white to white, which is 2 notches higher. So this will be significantly lower than $132,000. It'll probably end up at $50,000 or so. Oh gosh, and I'll stop briefly at this Startling Terror Tales. Yeah, Startling Terror Tales number 11. I'm arachnophobic. This is nasty. It's currently bidding at $14,268. 6.5 Startling Terror Tales 11. Fair market is $26,000 and it's bidding at $14,268. Yeah. Strange Tales 110 is the first Doctor Strange, which you wouldn't know from the cover, and that is a shame. And that severely impacts the value of this book. This is a 9.0. It's a high-grade copy of a key. Should go for a lot of money. Bidding's at $8,377, and the fair market on this book is $20,000. So this is going to be a drop. It's not going to get there. The bidding is split. Once again, there's a 6.5. Doctor Strange, he will surely continue to appear in the MCU, but I don't know if we're going to get another Doctor Strange movie. And I don't know what the legacy of this character is going to be. I think more and more when key books don't have the character on the cover, they just don't get the values that the other books do. Three copies. I think these are all, like I've been saying over and over again, these are all going to go for well below fair market. These may all end up shooting up to fair market value, and it just looks bleak now. I imagine the guys at ComicLink are very used to things looking grim a few days before the auction ends, and then when the auction ends, everything blows up. Strange Tales 135, I was just talking about it. I really feel like this is the Nick Fury key more than Sergeant Fury issue 1 This is where he became the secret agent, head of S.H.I.E.L.D. that is closer to the character we know in the MCU. Its first appearance is the first appearance, but this is the first proper appearance of Nick Fury, in my opinion. Second highest grade at 9.6. The bidding is at $2,700. Hard to know on the fair market. There's only 12 copies, and there hasn't been a sale of a 9.6 listed on Go Collect in almost 10 years. That one was for $5,800. So this one is going for a little below half that. There's only 2,114 graded copies of this book. I have a hunch there are a lot out there that just haven't been graded because this isn't a well-known key. If the prices were to shoot up on this, which if that was going to happen, it would have happened by now, then we'd see a lot more on the population. That's my hunch. Kirby had clearly just seen Thunderball in the years of 1965. Yeah, I think Thunderball came out around there. Goldfinger. He was clearly high on the James Bond movies and wanted to bring the James Bond vibe into Marvel books. Did an awesome job with it. I think the helicarrier shows up here, the flying cars, maybe life model decoys. It's all introduced in this one issue. Then we got Submariner #1. This is a really big, key, golden age, timely issue, and I'm surprised to see the bidding split on this with 2 copies because there are only 153 copies in existence, about half of which are restored. But they've got 2 unrestored copies of Submariner #1, and this 7.5 looks really good. They got a 7.5 and a 5.0. 5.0 does not look nearly as good, which it shouldn't. The bidding on the 7.5 is $44,000 with a fair market of $56,000, so it's already very close. Most of these auctions, the bidding is about half what the fair market is. This one's very close. This one looks like it'll hit it. Bidding on this 5.0 is $6,318 with a fair market of $24,000. So this is way, way lower, probably because it's creamed off white pages and more to the point, the cover just isn't very appealing. It's got a nasty stain on the upper left corner, whereas this 7.5 is just glowing. And once again, I hope it's not because of the swastika on it. We got a bunch of Submariners. This one, Submariner is firing a machine gun, which you don't see him doing very often. Here he is throwing a machine gun. His head became more stylized as the book progressed. And then we jump ahead to 1968, Silver Age Submariner. Bidding's at $5,100. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't think this is a very important key. It's surprising to me that anyone's willing to pay that much for, granted, a 9.8 white pages, but it's not a super popular character, and this is nowhere near his first appearance, and this series did not do much and is not particularly well regarded, I don't think. Skim through Superboy. Here we go. Now we get to Superman. They have a copy of Superman #1 in this auction. Light tan to off-white pages, 1.5, but unrestored. More than half the copies of Superman 1 in existence are restored. It has a cover on it. It is very much falling apart, but nothing dire. We don't see the word brittle. We don't have the word detached listed up top or anything like that. No pages missing. This is a pretty impressive copy of Superman #1, all things considered, and the bidding on it is $115,000. So the next bid is got to be $120,000, which happens to be the fair market value for this book. In 3 days, 5 hours, and 23 minutes, this auction closes. I think somebody's going to come in with the fair market bid on this book because this is Superman #1. Not the first appearance of Superman. It's not Action #1. There aren't even any original stories in this book, but it's a great classic cover. And if you can't get your hands on Action Comics #1, next best thing is Superman #1, arguably. Because one could argue that the next best thing is Superman 4 in 9.0 white pages with Lex Luthor on the cover. This is not the first appearance of Lex Luthor. He showed up in Action Comics, I think the days before this. He showed up in Action Comics number something or other. But this is his second appearance and his first cover appearance. Superman is holding up these collapsing pillars like Samson. It is pretty astounding to see a comic from 1940 looking this good. White pages. You don't see white pages from a 1940 comic almost ever. It's one of the top 3 graded. There is a 9.2, but there are only 3 9.0s, so this is not the highest graded, but can't get much better. And I'll bet you that the 9.2, we have a sale on it. We don't know what it sold for because it sold on Comic Connect, and for some reason the actual sale price is grayed out. 56,122 is crossed out. So this is a stunningly good copy of Superman number 4 with Lex Luthor having a really bad day on the cover. And then we got one more great early Superman, number 14, White Pages 9.0. This is a very patriotic cover. I'm not feeling so patriotic these days, not one bit, I don't mind saying. So I'm not feeling the idea of a Superman cover in front of the American shield with a bald eagle on Superman's shoulder. I don't know that Superman would be feeling that patriotic these days either. Nevertheless, White Pages. This one is going for a lot more than issue 4, a lot more. Between these two, the issue 4 at 9.0 White Pages and issue 14 at 9.0 White Pages, I know which one I'd want. I'd want this issue 4. It's an earlier book. I personally like the cover better. However, the bidding on these two is $11,250 for issue 4, $29,000 for issue 14. 6 9.0s, 2 9.2s, 1 9.4. So this isn't close to the top. The last sale was 6 years ago for $26,400. Supermans generally have gone down since then. It certainly went up during the bubble and then down. So it's probably going to be less than $29,000. But no, what am I talking about? There's already a bid at $29,000. Higher than the last sale, much higher than the last sale from 2019 of $26,400. So with 3 days to go, this is already bidding higher than the last sale. We got another copy at 6.5. We probably can find out the 6.5. Yeah, the 6.5 value is $9,750. This is bidding at $3,601. So somebody has put a very high bid on this 9.0 copy, higher than it should be at this point in the auction. Whole bunch of Supermans. I'm going to skip over a bunch of Silver Age Supermans. Lois Lane issue 70 has a very high bid on this 9.8 White Pages copy, $7,250. One sale happened 11 years ago for $4,899. The reason this book is valuable is because it's the first Silver Age Catwoman. The newsstand date is November of 1966. Earlier that same year, Catwoman showed up in the Batman TV show, which was very, very popular in its first season. Julie Newmar was the first actress to play the Catwoman, and this depiction of Catwoman, though she is wearing a cape, it resembles how she looked on the TV show. So this is something that happened with Harley Quinn and has happened here and there with other characters who've appeared in adaptations, TV show, movie adaptations, cartoons, and been integrated back into the comics. I imagine that is the only reason this book is as high as it is. This sale is going to boost the fair market on this particular issue quite high. Then we got the first Alec Holland version of Swamp Thing, different from the House of Secrets 92 depiction of him. Right after he showed up in House of Secrets 92 in sort of a one-off story, they reconfigured the character into more of a superhero for the first issue of the Swamp Thing comic. It doesn't go for nearly as much as House of Secrets 92. This is 9.8 White Pages. Can't do any better than that. But the bidding's at $1,766. Fair market for Swamp Thing number 1 at 9.8 is only $4,100. For a Bronze Age book, I would think it would be higher. There's 48 9.8s. That's a lot of the reason why. It is Bernie Wrightson cover and art. Bernie Wrightson is a lot of the reason that I believe early Swamp Thing is prized. So it's surprising. Let me just do a quick comparison. So we got 9.8 Swamp Thing number 1 is $4,100 from the year prior, and 9.8 $84,000. Now there are only 3 9.8s in the census. That's a lot of the reason why. 31 9.6s, that's worth $34,000. Still so much more than Swamp Thing number 1. House of Secrets has a better cover than Swamp Thing number 1. Still, that is surprising that there's such a huge gap between this first appearance and what I believe is his second appearance in Swamp Thing number 1 in his own series. I was going to do this day 3 preview video all in one, but I spent so long talking about the books, I'm going to break it up into 2 videos. This one covered from M to S, and I'm going to do the last batch of books in one last video from T to Z. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching.